What's going on, you guys? This is DerekJ Speaks, and we are here to talk about WWE Crown Jewel 2024 live in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, where WWE crowned their first ever men's and women's Crown Jewel champions, where we had Women's World Champion Liv Morgan defeat the WWE Women's Champion Nia Jax, and for the men, WWE Champion Cody Rhodes beat the World Heavyweight Champion Gunther. Two completely different types of matches, but still the end result for both of them is Cody Rhodes being crowned the first ever men's Crown Jewel champion and Liv Morgan the women's Crown Jewel champion. WWE has been making this feel like a big deal with these Crown Jewel championships in Saudi Arabia. They created these giant gold belts with the multiple carats in them. They've given them the white glove treatment on TV. Every time we see them get carried around, as I'm talking right now, they are doing the post show and they're presenting this whole thing with a red carpet to their WWE experience facility in Saudi Arabia, where they're going to keep the championship belts. The physical belts are going to be kept there, and then each winner, that being Cody and Liv, are going to have a ring replicate of it to commemorate it, almost like a Super Bowl ring. So they've been almost ad nauseum, been really hammering in just the significance and the importance and the prestige and the history of this. It's just a Saudi Arabia Crown Jewel gimmick. I don't really see this playing any significant role on television going forward. I could be wrong, but as for the show itself, I mean, they did what they could, but I'm glad this is over so we can move on to actual stories involving these two individuals. But as for the show itself, like I said, the matches were very different. We saw Liv Morgan face Nia Jax, where the match itself, not all that interesting, not all that fascinating, where the main draw and attraction of the story was whether or not Tiffany Stratton would come out and cash in Money in the Bank. She did come out, she did tease it, but she never actually cashed in. And of course, wherever Liv Morgan is, she is followed by Dirty Dom and Raquel Rodriguez. So they were all out there too. And they played a factor in Liv getting the win here, with Dom sliding in Tiffany's briefcase, distracting the referee, and allowing for Raquel to knock Nia Jax off the middle rope when she was going for the Annihilator. And it allowed Liv to hit the Oblivion and get the win. And she became the first Women's Crown Jewel champion. She was presented the belt by Triple H, as was Cody Rhodes, after he beat Gunther in the main event. An incredible match, which, to no one's surprise, Cody Rhodes and Gunther had an incredible match on this show. They closed out the night in a great main event. Just great old school heel babyface type of main event here. Gunther firmly in control for majority of it. Cody fighting from underneath, trying to come back, staying in there with him. And the finish was pretty clever, as Cody was coming off the top with a super Cody cutter. He got caught by Gunther into a sleeper hold. Now, heading into this match, Gunther was saying how not only is he going to win, but he is going to beat Cody with a sleeper hold. So every time they teased the sleeper hold in this match, that was kind of an indicator of what that was building up to. So as Cody came off, got caught into the sleeper, both were down, but then Cody reversed his body weight backwards and rolled up Gunther to get the win. In fact, it reminded me instantly of the finish to the Bret Hart-Roddy Piper Intercontinental Championship match at WrestleMania 8. And it was interesting that I thought that, and then I believe it was Corey Graves on commentary who immediately mentioned and referenced that finish too. So it was refreshing. It was refreshing to see a clean finish in this match. Now, not ideal to see world champions get pinned with no consequence on a PLE. Cody beating Gunther does Gunther no favors, but it doesn't hurt him. But nothing is really gained from it either, but it wasn't hurt. I was fully expecting some kind of interference. Honestly, I was expecting a Gunther win on this show due to some interference from Kevin Owens, who we had already seen earlier in the night compete against Randy Orton. So I was expecting Kevin Owens to come back out. He still has issues with Cody, so I was firmly expecting him. But I guess with how they handled the Kevin Owens Randy Orton match, I guess it made sense that he probably was not in any condition to come back out. But it was cool to see an actual clean finish here. No interference. We get a lot of interference in matches on TV every single week, and even at some of these PLEs. I remember at SummerSlam, almost every single match on that show ended with some kind of outside interference. So seeing an actual clean finish to a main event was very refreshing to see. So that's that. That's the Crown Jewel Championship stuff. Like I said, for the night, it's a gimmick for this particular show, I guess. Whether fans are overly interested outside of people in Saudi Arabia, I don't know, but clearly it's something that they built up to be special. To me, it just bogged down TV as they were focusing too much on this instead of pushing actual other stories that had some merit and value. But it's over, it's out of the way, so we can move on to Survivor Series. And speaking of Survivor Series, that was the main crux of the opening match on this show, at least in terms of hyping that up and building to what we are all predicting will be the Survivor Series main event. Because the show opened here with a Bloodline Civil War, a 6-man tag team match as Roman Reigns teamed up with the Usos, Jimmy and Jey Uso, all back together, the original OG Bloodline, all back together, taking on Solo Sikoa and his crew of Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga, with Tonga Loa on the outside. The match itself, fine, big opening star attraction match. I thought it was very interesting. They had Roman and Jimmy come out with their entrance, got the big ovation, but not only did Jey Uso come out by himself, but he came out last. So he got the big ovation, the crowd going crazy for him. Really is amazing to see how much of a huge star he has become in this company. And it's thanks to this Bloodline story. But the match itself, there was a little bit of dissension with Jey and Roman. At one point, Roman wanted to tag in, and Jey didn't do it. But he eventually did tag in Roman, who got the big wild hot tag and went crazy and all that. But it came down to, from what I could tell, not really severe miscommunication between Roman Reigns and Jey Uso. It was just a matter of Jacob Fatu clearing house and taking out the Usos, clearing out everyone. There was a ref bump at some point, but it wasn't to great significance. But in the end, it was Solo Sikoa who hit a couple of Samoan spikes on Roman Reigns to get the win. Solo Sikoa pinned Roman Reigns in this match. Solo, someone who has eaten a lot of big losses over the past few months, who calls himself the Tribal Chief, he got the biggest win he possibly could by beating the original Tribal Chief himself in this match. So that gives him a lot of credibility going forward, that he can say, I pinned Roman Reigns. But of course, the big story of this match was not the match itself, but what happened after. So of course, the beatdown continued. The Bloodline ganged up on Roman Reigns and Jimmy Uso. They were going to lay out Roman in the announce table, but then Jey Uso came over, made the save, and they throw Jey back in the ring. So now all 4 heels are surrounding Jey. They're beating him down. And I took note of that because it was only once Jey Uso was single in peril here, that's when he got the save from Sami Zayn. Now, this past week on Raw, we saw Sami confront Jey about rejoining the Bloodline. We also had a cool little cliffhanger with Jimmy and Jay looking in the distance, seeing Sami talking to Solo Sikoa in a car. So that carried over here. Sami came out, got the big ovation. They were already chanting Olay, so the fans were expecting him to come out. He comes out, he confronts Solo and the Bloodline. Solo is welcoming him with open arms. He's extending the arms out for a hug, and Sami's looking at him. Jay's crouched down in the corner behind him. Sami comes in, gives Solo a hug, but then turns it immediately into an exploder suplex and lays him out. And so the rest of the Bloodline attack. Roman and Jimmy come back in. The heels are taken out. And now all that's left is Solo Sikoa by himself in the middle of the ring, surrounded by Jimmy Uso, Jey Uso, Roman Reigns, and Sami Zayn. And the crowd was going crazy for this visual here. And as Solo is getting back up, on one end you have Roman Reigns coming in to deliver a Superman punch. And on the other end, we have Sami Zayn coming to deliver, I guess, a Helluva Kick. But it didn't matter because Solo ducked, moved out of the way, and Sami connected with a kick right to Roman's face. And Solo scurried out of there. He left with his Bloodline laughing and smiling at this chaos that's brewing up here. Jimmy is upset. He's pushing and shoving Sami. He's getting in his face. Jay's trying to break them up. Roman's still on the ground looking up, very confused. So that was the final scene of this Bloodline stuff on the show. Obviously, everyone is already predicting that we're building to a War Games match at Survivor Series at the end of this month. And the build up to this, especially with Jay reuniting with Roman and Jimmy, there's a lot of debate and discourse going on as to whether this has been rushed. I will say, yes, it has. This is stuff that probably should have been teased for longer and started even earlier, but they didn't do that. We're here. This is what we're doing. It looks like the actual long drawn-out tease will be Sami Zayn reuniting with Roman, Jimmy, and Jay, and them all coming together to form a team to go up against Solo and his crew in a War Games match at Survivor Series. So we have Raw. In fact, they're taping Raw tomorrow. As of this recording, tomorrow on Sunday, they're taping Raw for Monday because they're going to be in Riyadh for it. So I'm sure Sami will be on that show. You got SmackDown this upcoming week, and you got 4 weeks worth of television leading up to Survivor Series to really play up this story. So we'll see how that works out. As for the rest of the show, we had a couple of other pretty good matches and stories. We had Bronson Reed take on Seth Rollins. Bronson Reed has made a name for himself on Monday Night Raw after taking out Seth Rollins with, 6 tsunami splashes all those months ago. So he took him out with that, and then he came back here. We got the singles match finally, and they did everything in their power in this particular match to make Bronson Reed look like an absolute beast against Seth Rollins. He was pummeling him. Seth, even before the match started, interrupted Bronson Reed's entrance, attacked him. They're brawling around ringside. Once the match actually starts, it's all Bronson Reed just punishing Seth, beating him down, being made to look like a monster here, which they've done a good job of doing that on TV weekly. So it was no shock that they were going to do it in this match. But it did not result in a win for Bronson Reed, as Seth Rollins hit Bronson Reed with a stomp on to some steel steps on the outside. Bronson Reed got up, broke the count, got back in the ring, got hit with a proper stomp in the ring, and then Seth went up top to deliver a super stomp, as Michael Cole said, and got the 1, 2, 3. Did not like the finish. Not a fan of Bronson Reed losing this match. Didn't really like that too much. Was hoping that this would be a big win for Bronson Reed on the show. Seth, he's an established name. He's a big name. He's one of the top baby faces, if not the top baby face on Monday Night Raw, right? Well, I would argue that Jey Uso is the top babyface on Monday Night Raw, but Seth Rollins is one of the top guys on the show. So he didn't necessarily need this win. I would argue that Bronson Reed needed it more, even though he was the one who took out Seth and was the one to crack this feud open, and he wanted to make a name for himself, get noticed, be put on the map, and this has done that for him. And like I said, the match, with how they handled it, with the fighting before the bell, throughout the entire match, it took, you heard what all it took for Seth to win. It took a lot of his energy to get Bronson Reed down for the 3 count, and even after the match, they showed Bronson Reed back up on his feet, ready for more, and Seth was in the aisle walking away telling him, like, hey, you can find me anytime. So maybe we will get a rematch at some point, but the interest level is not as high as it would have been had Bronson Reed won. But I don't think Bronson Reed's buried. I don't think he's damaged goods, nothing like that. They really were hyping him up to sound like, oh, well, he belongs. He showed that he deserves to be in a top spot. Whether WWE continues to put him in a top spot will remain to be seen. Is this going to be a case where this was just something to write Seth off of television for a few weeks and then bring him back and give him a win and then cast Bronson Reed aside back to obscurity in the undercard? Or are they going to actually position him as a top name on the show and he will be doing stuff weekly or semi-weekly and be an important figure on the show? I don't know. That remains to be seen. But the match was good. Finish, not a fan personally, but I'm not giving up on Bronson Reed yet. I just have concerns on whether or not they're going to keep up with the momentum that they had for him heading into this match. We had Randy Orton and Kevin Owens. They didn't even have a match. Kevin Owens, they have been presenting him as being this unhinged, riled up character, and Randy Orton's been wanting to fight him. He had to convince Triple H to make this match official, and Triple H was saying how he was protecting Randy Orton from Kevin Owens and how Kevin Owens is different, he's changed, he's more dangerous. So I was looking for that in this match, and we never got a match. They brawled. Funny enough, just like with Seth and Bronson Reed, before the match even started, Kevin Owens interrupted Randy's entrance and attacked him, so they started brawling, but the bell never rang. In fact, the referee couldn't ring the bell because Kevin Owens laid out the referee with a stunner. So that took care of that, and the commentators were basically saying, like, well, this match is waved off, it's not going to happen, so there you go. And what proceeded was just a wild brawl between these two. Kevin Owens had a steel chair in hand. He was targeting Randy Orton's leg and his back. He was beating him up with it. Randy wasn't down for too long because he also got the chair in his hand and he was attacking Kevin Owens with it as well. We had officials run out. We had more referees run out, trying to separate them to no avail. We even had both general managers come out. We had Raw GM Adam Pearce and SmackDown GM Nick Aldis. This is a SmackDown issue with 2 SmackDown stars, so I'm not sure why Raw GM Adam Pearce was out there, and he suffered for it because Adam Pearce got laid out with an RKO. And then the brawling between Orton and KO led them into the crowd over near the production area where Owens had Orton laid out on a table that was just so happened to be placed there, of course. KO went up into a guardrail on a higher level platform and came crashing down with an elbow drop onto Randy Orton through the table, and that's where both men were laid out. So no match, which I figured this would either be what it was, which was no match and just a big brawl, or if there would be a match, no DQ, or it'd be a no contest, double DQ kind of thing. So this extends the program between these two. They did what they could to make Kevin Owens look like this dangerous, unhinged person by just attacking Randy Orton and taking out the referees. We see refs get bumped and look stupid on TV, and we see security guards get flung around like nothing every single week, whether it's WWE television, whether it's AEW television. We see it every week. But in this case, with these two, we see a referee get intentionally taken out with a finishing move. We see one of the GMs get taken out. So that added a little bit of extra excitement to it. What do I see coming from this? I think they'll fine them and they'll suspend them and they'll do stuff like that. But I'm pretty sure, even still, despite that, we might be heading in the direction of Cody and Kevin Owens, because that story has not been resolved yet. It's barely even begun. So I suspect we'll get that singles match at some point. Randy, I don't think will be removed from the equation. So we could be looking at a triple threat match for Survivor Series. And then maybe coming out of that, we might get either Cody and Kevin Owens one-on-one in December at Saturday night's main event. Maybe Cody and Randy, if they want to start that feud coming out of this. We'll see. But in the immediate future, I suspect it'll be a triple threat at Survivor Series. But what they did here, while lame to a certain degree, it was expected. So there you go. We also had some undercard matches that were pretty fun on this show. We had a women's tag team title match, a four-way for the women's tag team titles. Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill, Io Sky and Kairi Sane, Chelsea Green and Piper Niven, and of course from NXT, Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson. This was a fun match to see. Even Lash Legend in particular, very impressive. Io Sky, she has gotten super over with the crowd as a babyface ever since Damage Control turned babyface not too long ago. The fans were hot for this match. This was very great. This was very fun. This was very wild. And the right team won, or at least the team I expected to win won the match, as Piper Niven was on the middle rope going for a splash on Jade. Jade got up, knocked down Chelsea, and Piper Niven, who had her back turned, of course, she comes down with basically the Vader bomb and unintentionally squashed Chelsea Green. And so Piper Niven gets back up, and then Jade gets Piper on her shoulders, and then Bianca goes up top and comes down. They hit a doomsday device on Piper Niven to get the win. So Jade and Bianca, still the tag team champions. Very fun match. A lot of great talent in there. And of course, I would be remiss if I don't mention the excellent amount of black excellence in this match. So great stuff here. And then we also got a triple threat match for the United States Championship with LA Knight, Carmelo Hayes, and Andrade. For months now on SmackDown, Carmelo Hayes and Andrade have been killing it in a bunch of singles matches, and I was hoping that it could be paid off and blown off with them getting a match on an actual PLE. And we kind of got that here, although LA Knight was thrown in too, but he himself hasn't been on a PLE since he won the title at SummerSlam against Logan Paul. So it was good to see all three of these guys make it onto the show and be in a match that was very entertaining, that the live crowd was super into. So that made for a great spot here. It was a tough spot for them to be in. They were in kind of the death slot on the show right before the main event, right after the chaos from Randy Orton and Kevin Owens, but they got the crowd into it. LA Knight hit the BFT on Carmelo Hayes to get the win. After already beating both men in singles matches, it was no surprise that he was going to be here to beat them both in a triple threat here. But the match itself was fun, but LA Knight retains the title. I'm not sure where any of these three go from here. LA Knight, I'm glad to see him with the title. I'm glad to see him regularly defending the championship on TV, but I would like to see them do something a little more substantial with him as far as giving him a proper story and feud and program to really sink his teeth into. As for Carmelo Hayes and Andrade, hey, I could watch them wrestle every single week, but eventually they got to move on. So I'm not sure where they go from here, but good stuff on this particular show. And that about covers it for this show in particular. I mentioned Raw this upcoming Monday. They're taping it on Sunday night. They already announced a fatal four-way match to determine the new number one contender for the World Heavyweight Championship. Damian Priest, Sheamus, Seth Rollins, and Dirty Dominic Mysterio. So we should see who will win that match. I am going with Damian Priest, but it would not shock me if Dom somehow pulled off a win in this match, and we get Dom versus Gunther for the world title on TV at some point. If for nothing else other than to just see Gunther chopping the hell out of Dom on TV, that could be very entertaining. But I suspect that Damian Priest will get the win here, and we'll get a match with Gunther for the title, probably at Survivor Series. But that's it as far as this is concerned. I will not be talking about that, but I am glad that I talked about this show. Top to bottom, not a bad show. The Crown Jewel Championship stuff, like I said, very much isolated to this one show, has no great significant consequence on the stories going forward. So that's now in the past. The Bloodline stuff, look forward to seeing how that will play out in the future. And even the Randy Orton, Kevin Owens stuff, and how they get integrated with Cody Rhodes back in the mix, we shall see. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that is concerned. But as for me, that is it. Thank you for listening. If you like what you heard, like what you saw, hit the like button, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter /X at DerekJ Speaks. Till next time, take care.